Hi, welcome back to another webinar. On this webinar, we're going to be discussing contractor management. So, within Logit, having contractors stored on the system allows you to unlock different functionalities to fully utilize your maintenance module. You'll see that I am within the contractor module, which can be located in the 9-dot menu once you have your contractor set up. When I go to the contractor module, you'll have a list of all your contractors for each location, and you can click on view properties and it will show you all the properties that you have stored against each contractor, ranging from insurance, public liability to the email address and the website of that contractor. You can build as many properties as you like against each contractor. As you can see here, we've got call out details, job quotes, etc, etc. Having your contractors built into Logit gives you additional functionality within your maintenance module. However, it also just gives you a really nice view of all the third-party contractors that you use in case you need to give them a quick call, which will save you, scrambling through your contractor logbook trying to find the number for Bob the Builder. This just gives you an easy list of all your contractors that you use, which can be easily accessible by just clicking on your 9-dot menu and selecting contractors. Within the contractors, you can get their email address or drop them an email. When you select email, it can take you straight to your Outlook, and then you can email them straight from there. You can also click the little cog and visit websites. This will take you directly to their website as long as you have that information in when you create the contractors within the configure portal, which I will show you in just a minute. If you build your contractors into the system and you create a public liability record where you want to know when the public liability is next due, when it is next due, you can select add records and you can say that you've had a contractor call out or a contractor job quote, and click add. And this will open up any records that you have created for the contractor, which you can store directly against Bob the Builder to advise what his job quote was. You also have the ability to go down to the filter option and filter to only see joiners, for example, only see electricians or gas services, and so on, so on, so on. So that's not the only thing that's fantastic about being able to store your contractors within Logit. This just gives you an easy list. When you have your contractors built within Logit, it also allows you to delegate reactive maintenance request directly to the contractor themselves. So for example, if I go to the maintenance requests and I want to say that the broken tile cannot be resolved in-house, you also can assign this particular maintenance request that came in directly to the contractor. And when I click assign, you'll see that it then is assigned to Bob the Builder, and we can send them an email with all of the information within the maintenance request that's been raised to advise that they've been assigned to a maintenance request within Logit, and all the information on the maintenance request will be within the email that is sent out to them, so they do not even need to have access to Logit to receive emails. Within the calendar, we can also send emails out prior to your statutory compliance being due, confirming that it's coming up for renewal, and it will confirm the location and what is coming up for inspection. And this will just save you the need to remember to email out the contractor to advise that the pat testing is due. We can cut out the middleman and send that directly out to the contractor a set amount of days before the statutory compliance event is due. So, as we see, there's a lot of efficient benefits that having contractors created on the system does for your business, from automated emails out before a statutory compliance event is due, to just simply being able to store the contractor details within Logit to ensure that you know exactly where to go when you need to call out your joiner, to save you trying to find that bit of paper with the joiner's number on it. Now, to create contractors in the back end, what we want to do is go to the three dots and head over to the configure portal. And if you look under the structure and assets, we have an additional section called contractors. Within contractors, you can then have the list of all the contractors that we have created within Logit. And you'll see that we have one for, canopy cleaning. You input the area that's covered, you input the canopy cleaning service that they provide, and also their number, as well as the email address and website if you have it. You can then have all your contractors' properties stored against each one, which says when is the insurance next due, when was the date of the last call out, as well as when was the date of the last they signed in or out. Now, these properties can be completely standardizable depending on what information that you want to store against each contractor, but this just gives you an idea of what contractor properties can be done to help store information against each specific contractor. Now, to create a contractor, thankfully for both you and I, is very simple. You can firstly make sure that you have your contractor type keyed. So if you want to add in a mechanic, for example, you can add contractor type, confirm mechanic, then click create. Now, when we want to create a contractor, we can add contractor, and then we can assign what type of contractor that we want to create on the system. So if I, want a mechanic, or this could be simple as, just your electrician, confirm electrician type, confirm electrician company name, confirm area covered, services provided, and you need to ensure that you click approved if you want to be able to delegate them out to reactive maintenance requests. If you also want to ensure they receive emails prior to stat compliance or reactive maintenance being assigned to them, please ensure that you input the email address for that specific contractor here, as this is the way that we'll be able to send out an email to the contractor before each event is due. You can input the telephone number and also their email address as well. Once we have all our information entered, we can click create, and you can see we now have our contractor created, and we see how we now have Michael Sparks' services created under contractors. Now, if you want to have properties like the public liability against each contractor, what you can do is go to the manage, and then this will allow you to create properties against contractors, which will then cascade down into every contractor that you create. So for example, I can add a section, and this section could be called, public liability. Click create. And once that's been created, we've created our section. I want to add a property which says public liability inspection date. I can also add another property which says when is the next time it's due for renewal. So for that, we can do a calculated date, and the calculation will be the public liability inspection date plus either manual value if it's due every year, so you can do plus 12 months. And this means that as soon as I enter the last inspection date, it will automatically reschedule that for 12 months down the line. So now I've created additional property called public liability, and I can go back to the contractors. When I click on Michael Sparky Services, I can then say the 15th of February 2024, click save. It will then automatically reschedule that for the 12th of February 2025. And what we can even do at this point is go back to the properties that we created, and then we want to send a trigger which says contact somebody internally, or even contact the contractor 30 days before, to ensure that the due date reminder is sent out to the contractor. and then click save. So this will basically send out a notification, an email out to the contractor 30 days before, which says your public liability is coming up for renewal. I mean, you can even set another one up which says if it's still not been done 15 days before, then let's send an email to a specified email address, which could be internal management. There we have our contractors created, and we already have our properties created. We create the new property, which was pulling through public liability due date to ensure that all the contractors' liability is up to date. And if it's not, then we can send emails out to the contractor and also management to let them know that it's coming up for renewal. And we can also link a contractor's properties directly to a calendar as well. So for example, we've got one called Contractors Contracts, in which is essentially a calendar which can be used to log stat compliance as well as anything else with a next inspection date. And if I click on edit on this one, we can then pull through additional properties which says I want to pull through the public liability next due date and click attach. And now if I go back to the contractors tab within the monitor portal and I want to see the contractors contracts, it was pulling through that the public liability for Michael Sparky Services is due within 358 days. For more information about how you set up a calendar, please refer to my calendar webinar where I go into this in great detail. This is just to basically showcase the functionalities that having contractors built into the system does. Now, if you want to link your contractors to a particular calendar and the calendar is pulling through assets, so for example, the stat compliance events for the annual boiler service that's pulled through that's done externally. If you want to link contractors to a specific asset so we can send out emails prior to the stat compliance event being due, then this is done within the configure portal. So we have our calendar set up and now we want to know how we link our contractors to asset types. So to do so, it's very simple. If I go down to the assets, as we have our assets created already, and I find the electrical testing, for example, and I want to see all of the stat compliance events that sit under the electrical testing. So if I click on the Pat Testing Annual for Edinburgh Hotel, you can see it has a drop down for the contractor. And here, this is where you advise which contractor you have built into the system manages this specific event that is on the compliance calendar. So for example, this could be, Michael Sparky Services. And now when I click save, this gives me the ability to send out emails directly to Michael Sparky Services prior to the annual boiler service needing to be renewed. Now, as long as the calendar is set up, you can then go down to the asset group and go down to the electrical testing, for example, and click properties. Similar to the contractors, we have calculations built into the background of the contractors, and here we can say, 30 days before, email contractor to advise that the next due date is coming up for renewal. And as long as the contractor is specified against the particular asset, we will automatically send out an email to them in the background. So that is how you create your contractors within Logit. Now, contractors do link to various different things, like your maintenance requests, like your calendars, and even to smartboards. So for further information on them, and if this unlocks further interest to possibly using maintenance requests or possibly using calendars, please refer to these webinars where I go into this in a lot more detail as to how you set calendars up, as well as the multiple steps it takes to set these calendars up, which will give you a step-by-step guide on how to do so. Now if we head over to the three dots within the monitor portal and head down to the contractors module, you can see that we have a list of different records that are stored against each contractor, from sign in out to contractor job quotes, etc, etc. Now, if you want to have records stored against each contractor, there's a few easy steps to do. Is one, you want to have your properties created under the Manage Contractor section within the Configure portal. And once we have the properties created, like your public liability property that I created, you can then link this directly to a form and then make this form available for contractors. So you can easily fill out once this has been done, which works really well on, sign in out forms or contractor callouts or contractor job quotes. Now, to do so, if you want to manage it by being within the Configure portal. Now, if you do want to manage this in way of the Contractors module within the Monitor portal, and you want to create a form and link the form to a record for each contractor, first of all, I'm going to head over to the Configure portal, head down to the contractors, and you can see that we have created our public liability property, which means that we can link this property directly to a form. Step one is create your contractors, create your contractor properties. The next step is to create a form, turn that into a record, and then that will link directly to our contractor module within the 9 menu. So to create a form, head to the form library, click add form. We can call this public liability contractor form. Now, we want to leave the owner as organisation, which is fine, and we can leave the department as all departments to keep it nice and simple. We then have a drop down for form type, so we now have the option for contractor. And if we select contractor, this is how the form knows to link this directly to the contractor module. And I click create. Once I have created this, we then want to add a section, and this section will be a contractor properties. That's if you want to directly link the properties from the contractor properties which we created, or you can actually just do a general question as well. Now, if you want to have a public liability due date record, for example, we want to pull through the contractor properties, because we know that we have a calculation in the background which says when the public liability date is entered, it will automatically recalculate the next due date. So I can then link a property directly to the form and pull through the public liability inspection date. Now that's the form created. We then can turn this into a record, as records are what are linked to the contractor module within the 9 menu which we've seen. We can call this contractor public liability, pull through the contractor form that we created, and then assign the responsibilities who need to have access to this. So this could be, manager and the general manager, for example, depending on who is going to manage this going forward. This could also be your reception team, if they're going to be logging contractor callouts. Now click create. Now we've created our form and turned it into a record, and it's a contractor form. If we go back to the Monitor portal and head down to the contractor within the 9 menu, now if I click add record, it'll then have another contractor record pulling through, which is the one that we just created, and then we can then put the inspection date of contractor public liability due date, and you'll see if I then have it as, the 16th of the 2nd, 2023, and I click submit, this will automatically update the next inspection date within the contractor in the Configure portal, and which can also be then linked to the calendar as well. So if I go to contractors and I find the Bob the Builder, you can see Bob the Builder has the next inspection date as the 16th of February 2024. Because we pulled through the last inspection date onto the form, and we have calculations built into the background which automatically adds 12 months on to give the next due date once it has the last inspection date of the public liability. Now, before we finish, I just want to touch on the reporting for contractors. So we've touched on what it looks like in the Monitor and what it looks like in the Configure portal, but we can also pull reports in the back end to give you an idea of how well each contractor is doing with the resolution of closing down the jobs that are assigned to them. If we go to the reporting section and to the reports, you see that we can have a down box called contractor performance, which will give you a top level report of how each contractor is doing, ranging from average resolution times to how many issues have been raised over the set time periods, as well as how many are outstanding and are over 14 days old, for example. So this will give you a good idea of what contractors are getting the jobs done quicker and what contractors are absolutely smashing out the park and are very efficient. So that's one of the reports you can pull. You can also pull a contractor properties report. So for example, you can pull through time, and if you want to know all of the next insurance dates for each contractor, as well as the public liability next due date, you can run a contractor properties report, which will confirm to you which contractor's insurance is overdue to ensure that you can prompt the contractors to give you the public liability inspection date to keep compliant. Now guys, thanks so much for joining me today on this webinar where we touched on contractor management. I hope you found this as fascinating as I did, and if you have any questions, please reach out and ask at the end of the webinar. Thanks guys, I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic day.